Welcome to the Bill Walton Show, featuring conversations with leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and thinkers. Fresh perspectives on money, culture, politics, and human flourishing. Interesting people, interesting things.
Welcome to the Bill Walton Show. I'm Bill Walton, and you're joining us in progress with our Tuesday story meeting with the brain trust of the Bill Walton Show, and their names are all on their screens below, and also you're going to find their biographical information on our website, thebillwaltonshow.com. It's got their bios and also a lot of interesting stuff about our some 180 shows we've done so far. So welcome, guys. Let's talk about what's going on. Brian and I were just talking about Twitter, Musk, and what Musk is going to do. I just saw that Amazon's going to launch 3,000 satellites of their own to try to get into the internet business. Has anybody seen that?
I saw the story on that. Yeah.
Well, I think why not?
You know, it's funny. Elon Musk wants to talk about living on Mars in the next whatever many years. If you have ever seen his train of Starlink satellites fly over your house, and then if Amazon's going to put 10,000 satellites up, in addition to all the satellites and space junk that's already up there, we will not be able to get off of this planet without getting bombarded by space junk. We are building our own. It's unbelievable. If you have not seen Elon Musk's Starlink, it's single file lights for 10 minutes. You just see satellite after satellite after satellite. And it is cool and spooky at the same time. So you start thinking, what's up there? And how are we going to be able to break through it in any kind of rocket without just getting bombarded by junk?
Well, Lee Smiley, who I work with, she was head of performing arts at the University of Maryland. Her husband worked for NASA, deep space stuff, very scientific engineer to the nth degree. And I asked him, what's he worried about? Is he worried about space warfare? And he said, no, I'm worried about all the junk flying around up there.
Right. So in early March, a piece of a spaceship crashed into the moon. It was about it went in at about 600 miles an hour. It was about a 450-ton piece of metal that flew into the dark side of literally the dark side of the moon. So I mean, it's getting to the point where we don't something big enough hits the moon to knock it out of its orbit. We got some major problems on Earth. So it is getting to a point where it's very dangerous, and when these things start orbiting, they're going hundreds of miles an hour. So if you get hit by them, you're going to get hit really hard.
Well, it doesn't even take that. All it takes is this stuff disintegrates and becomes space dust. That space dust can take a spaceship out. So it doesn't even take a big, huge satellite to take you out. It can be specks of dust and paint that have just dissolved over the course of years. And it hits you going fast enough, and it's going to start tearing you apart. It's a crazy thing. I never really thought about it until I saw that Starlink thing. And we talked about space junk before over the years and on all the radio shows. Space junk, let's get mad. But then you start seeing the Starlink train of satellites, and you start going, wow, we're trapped. There's a mesh net above us that we cannot get through.
Don't you think Bezos is going to want to top Musk?
Of course.
He's going to want to have something more spectacular.
Do you think they
Alyona, maybe you could help him with design. Alyona, what's that?
Do you guys think they actually calculate the launch itself so it will be nowhere close to all the stuff that is floating around?
I think they do, but at some point, they've created.
You don't know about all of it,
Yeah, well, there's, and they even map the space junk. You can see maps of the junk orbiting our planet.
Where do you find?
Is there mapped and titled?
Is there a www we can find? Do you know? www space junk. Okay, we'll look it up.
If you Google space junk, you'll find it.
Well, Brandon Weichert wrote this book, Space Warfare, which is really very good. But he talks about China and Russia and their intentions to command space. I think it'd be interesting because there's all these commercial interests in space, and they've got an interest in not having China nor Russia command space. So I don't know.
I think Ukraine has just proved that traditional warfare is over, and that's where it's got to go. Ukraine has shown Russia, you can invade us, but you're not really ever going to win. So until they start taking down the infrastructures and space wars like this, that's what they're going to do to control whole civilizations now.
Saying out of all the space rides, I think I would trust the Amazon one the least. I think I might as well go with the eccentric billionaire from England, with the Virgin Galactic. That seems at least, I don't know. At least it seems like that would be a fancy explosion if it were to happen.
Champagne in those last few seconds.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Amazon would be. You see how an Amazon box gets delivered? You want that to be your ride to space? I don't think so.
Right.
Well, hey, Ukraine. So my question for you is, why do we care about Ukraine but not our own borders?
Well, I would say that these are, those are kind of separate things. We should care about our own borders and care about Ukraine. If he, the thing that people won't, I can't get people to answer me is, if his problem is that, he needs this buffer, Ukraine is a buffer between him and the West, which is, I guess, what his reason is he gives for fighting this war. Once he takes Ukraine, he's on the border of Poland, which is a full-fledged member of NATO. So does he decide then that he's going to do Poland to restore his buffer? So, I mean, it's something you're going to have to pick your poison here and figure out where
I respectfully disagree. I think that Ukraine sits to Russia about like Texas sits next to the United States. And we've been very aggressive about pushing them into NATO. And, Russia's been territorial for millions of years. And so I think we've kept poking a stick in this guy's eye. I don't know. I mean, when you say about, well, we got to worry about Putin and then Ukraine and then Poland and then the ball. I mean, it sounds like we're back into the old domino theory that got us bogged down in Vietnam for 30 years.
Well, I mean, the domino theory wasn't proven incorrect. I mean, they were going around the world, taking countries and trying to convert them to communism.
Well,
it didn't not happen.
Well, but now we're buying all our good stuff manufactured in Vietnam. So, I mean, the world tends to, I don't know.
I think the answer to your question, Bill, is you asked, why do we care about Ukraine but not our own borders? I would ask, why is the media covering Ukraine and not our own borders? And therefore the reason why people don't really pay attention or care about it. And why is that? Well, it's because the White House and the mainstream media are connected and they tell them not to cover the borders, and they can, ignore that story, but they can't ignore Ukraine. That's a worldwide story. Both of these are stories that Biden, through mismanagement, allowed to happen. And it just so happens he has to address one, but can ignore the other.
Well, I don't think he's mismanaging the southern border. I mean, we had Ken Cuccinelli and Russ Vought on a couple of weeks ago, and they think what they're doing with the border is completely intentional.
Yeah. We just had a Border Patrol leader on the Sarah Carter podcast yesterday, and he pretty much said the same thing. All of this is intentional because there's no way that you can mismanage something this badly. They must be doing it for a reason. And what is that reason? It's to build a Democratic base. So.
Well, it's
right. I think they need some new voters.
I'd highly recommend watching I got interrupted here. Sorry. Watching the Cuccinelli vote thing. You guys have all seen it, but they really get into it, and it's pretty scary. Alyona, where did you grow up? What country?
Kazakhstan.
And that's east of.
Used to be part of the Soviet Union. It's south of Russia. It's between Russia and China.
What's your take on what Russia's doing with Ukraine?
I think it used to be part of Russia, from way back when. We're going down the history lane of Kiev Rus was the place, and that's Kiev, right? So there are a lot of historical roots that do kind of, for lack of a better word, belong to Russia. But I also think that it's strategically a better place because technically right now Russia doesn't have a single port that doesn't freeze over. So, and there's so many different things that may be going on that we will probably never find out, as far as, the geopolitical positioning, as far as all of that goes. But fundamentally, I think what Russia wants is for all the countries that used to be Soviet Union, or at least the ones that aren't belonging to any alliance as of right now, to go with Russia because Russia can take care of them. The countries like Kazakhstan, like Kyrgyzstan, like Azerbaijan, all of them have their own alliance. So that might be also another thing.
So how are people feeling? Do you have any relatives? I mean, it sounds like where you're from is not very close culturally to Ukraine, but you get any, what's your community saying about how the Ukrainians are feeling? What's the emotional?
They're kind of divided as far as that goes, because my parents and my grandparents have friends that are in Ukraine right now. And we also have friends who are in Russia right now. So all of them are very divided. All of them are very unsure of what is to expect moving forward and how long it's going to be, and what is the final goal realistically. And at what point is it going to be enough? But whoever is in Ukraine, they're of course scared. Whoever is in Kazakhstan, again, they're split up in two ways. However, we did have kind of a civil revolution going on in Kazakhstan in the beginning of January, about a month before Russia invaded Ukraine, and Russia came in alongside other countries and helped us, Kazakhstan regain peace over the country, and they brought 3,000 troops. They helped Kazakh government, and they walked out. Within 2 weeks, the country was back in norm. So because of that, they're probably a little bit more leaning towards Russian side, but again, there's a lot of news, and I'm hearing it from the American side, and I'm hearing it from my side, whichever I can grab right now, whichever I can get my hands on. And some things do align, and others are the absolute polar opposites. And that's what's scary.
Yeah, thanks for that, because it seems to me like the media, and I'd be interested in, Greg, now that you've rejoined, your point of view. This thing's being covered like a cartoon war. There's good versus evil, and we've got these images we're supposed to respond to. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what's real. There's all talks about staging these various, atrocities. And once again, I think we've got the liberal elite in the United States warmongering again. John Kerry doesn't think it's a good thing because it's going to slow climate change agendas. But I don't know. What's your take on how this is being covered by the media?
Well, I think that for the most part, we've got political agreement from the right and the left. You saw, I believe, a unanimous vote in the Senate in response to the alleged war crimes last week. And so there's not a lot of political polarization. on the basic facts in this issue, there is some difference in terms of what the United States ought to be doing about it. At least in the early days, you had some folks saying that we should be part of a no-fly zone and we should be, in other words, directly involved in the war, and others saying, no, we can't do that, at the very least until a NATO country were to be directly involved in this. And so the media has been absolutely pro-Ukraine, in this country anyway, anti-Putin, and there are obviously some legitimate reasons for that, which I'm sure you've already discussed with his decision to invade Ukraine and so forth. But anytime the media is monolithic on something, you want to raise your eyebrows a little bit and maybe figure out what else might be going on that's not obvious at the outset. But in terms of the basic facts, and if these war crimes are perpetrated as alleged, that adds another layer to this as well. And so it makes some sense as to why the coverage has been the way it is.
I think an untold story and part of this is the level of distrust we all have, all of us on the right and a lot of people on the left, of the media, right? So, to me, this is a fairly straightforward story. This is fairly typical Russian aggression against its neighbors. The claims are similar. They're not allowed to align with people we don't let them align with. We need our buffer zone and all that. These are things the Russians have been saying for hundreds of years about why they expand their empire. But now we're like, I don't really believe that spin because we've been misled about Trump Russia, Trump Mueller, Trump, all the hoaxes of the previous administration, all the hoaxes of, it's not really inflation and people don't realize how good the economy is now and ignore those fuel prices. I mean, we've been bald-faced lied to so much that now when there's something that's fairly straightforward, as far as I'm concerned, it's fairly straightforward, not, a twistable story, so to speak. And no one believes it because we've learned not to believe these people.
You mean lies like the efficacy of lockdowns, masks,
right. Exactly.
vaccines? I mean, there's been a whole list of things we're supposed to believe that as time goes on.
But you know what? We talk about this and we end up with a tribalistic media where everybody is sectioned off into their little tribes and they believe what they're told by their trusted source of information. So, on Facebook or on Twitter, you will still see people saying that Trump is the cause for this and Trump is the cause for that. Yeah. Things that are happening now. And Biden bears no blame whatsoever. It's all Trump's fault. He led us into this, and now Biden's fixing his messes still. And, it's because they're being told that's the spin. And it's, I'm in the business. So it's hard for me to say this, but there are the CNNs and the MSNBCs. They know that even the Sean Hannity's, they have their audience, and they drive to their audience. They give their audience what their audience.
Well, you're Radio America, you and Greg both, and you've got a lot of talk show people on. I mean, what's the percentage of talk people that are all in on we gotta save Ukraine?
I mean, I think they're all.
Because I know Tucker. I'm more aligned with Tucker Carlson. I think it's a head fake. I think we should be paying attention to China. And 5 years ago, we should have been making friends with Russia, but that didn't happen. So I don't know if we go back in that.
I think everybody knows that China is the boogeyman and that Russia is its little brother. But I think everybody wants to save Ukraine, but I don't think everybody thinks Ukraine is this great democracy that they're being put up to believe, and that's kind of the narrative now. But yeah, agreed. China is the boogeyman.
What do we do about the economy? I mean, we're going to have inflation numbers coming out today, and it's supposed to be 8.5% roughly. It hadn't been that high since Ronald Reagan. Yeah. Just when Reagan was replacing Carter and we had Paul Volcker come in, I'm looking at something like, for example, there's this piece yesterday in the Journal called "The Scramble for Cooking Oils," and it turns out the price of basic cooking oils, palm oil, sunflower, rapeseed, they're up 40, 50, 60, 70% just in the last couple of months. And one of the unintended consequences of this Russia-Ukraine thing is that they're producing most of the fertilizers, or at least the fertilizers that, the natural gas that creates fertilizers that the Germans convert into fertilizers. Farmers are going to be paying a fortune to grow their crop this year, and we're going to pay in the grocery store. And I don't think there's a single person in the Biden administration that's got a clue on how to deal with this.
Yeah, it's 8.5.
My answer to your question is it's not getting better until 2024 or 2025. Nothing good is going to happen until then. You have an inept big government as the solution to every problem administration, and these are problems that you can't approach like that.
Yeah,
Frank,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg. Greg, go jump in.
I was going to say, it's like you said, over 40 years since we've seen inflation like this, and the White House response is to scrap the summer blend for fuel. So you have E15 in your fuel tank, which is not as good, certainly, for your engine. So the long-term effects of this could be significant, and it's going to be a short-term blip probably when it comes to price as well. But they're scrambling right now, obviously, because they know that there's nothing in the short term that's going to change this, and certainly before November.
Let me tell you what you do about inflation. Pump more oil domestically. Open the pipeline. That's the first thing you do. Get the fuel prices down, and that helps everything else. Then have the government stop paying farmers to shut down their crops. Grow, baby, grow. This is absolute insanity that we shut down our oil production and that we pay farmers to let their crops go dead. It's just insane. China owns everything. They produce our pharmaceuticals. They produce they produce everything that we use and consume. We need to start production of all of our essential products here in the United States yesterday. And that starts with oil, then goes to farming, and then goes to pharmaceuticals, and they keep on going.
Well, I'd love to be more optimistic, but you mentioned China. They've got the same. China's gone into this insane lockdown mode, and for example, Shanghai over their zero COVID-19 strategy, which we know is an unachievable goal in this life and on this planet. But they've locked so many cities down that they're now worried about their own economic growth, their own food production, their own water supply, all the stuff that we're worried about, they're now having to worry about.
Okay. Welcome to the party.
Well, yeah, but if you want to do geostrategic stuff, I don't know what a start.
When I'm looking at, you're looking at these films in China, this video that's coming out of China, our calculation is that there will never be enough civil unrest in China to make any real difference with who's running the country. But, I don't know how long that's sustainable. You have these people in these buildings screaming, jumping out the windows because they're locked down, and you have drones flying overhead spying on them. I can't believe people are going to really put up with that.
Did everybody see that video of those high rises in Shanghai?
I have not seen this.
With the whaling.
Greg, you want to describe it?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of different videos, but I think the one you're referring to really went viral over the past weekend, where it's this person shooting video out their balcony or their window of their high rise, and there's all these other high rises in the community, and you just hear these people shrieking and screaming and wailing, and it's dark out, which makes it even more eerie because you literally can't leave your house, and it's been that way, or your apartment, been that way for weeks and weeks and weeks. For no reason are you allowed to leave, and it's driving people absolutely insane. They can't see their loved ones. They can't go to wherever they need to go.
Well, and they're murdering cats and dogs, and Shanghai's 25 million people, and it's the most sophisticated, urbanized, westernized. That's really the wrong word, but it's not a backwater, and that's one of the reasons that I think the Chinese economic minister is worried about China's growth, because they know how important Shanghai is. I don't know. Good news after. Hey, Frank Waziter, how your website business deals with a lot of small companies, entrepreneurial companies. How are they feeling this economy right now? Have they come out of the the lockdowns?
Well, it kind of it depends on, what the business they were in. You saw a lot of people that were pretty much forced to redefine the way they did business. And some people, well, a lot of people went out of business because of that. And so on the small business level, really, it's just kind of a nuclear arms race to raise prices fast enough and to capture enough customers to make sure that, you survive what's coming. Because the reality is, it's like you will look at it and say, okay, well, whatever. Like I can look at things like that we charged, say 800 or so, last year, the year before. Now we're saying, all right, we'll go for 1,500, and we're seeing that across the board, just everybody increasing their prices, to at least, 1.5 to double, just to make sure that when this, the bottom kind of falls out, that the customer base that they do have is going to see them through whatever is going to happen. At least a lot of the groups that I've been around.
Do you have any restaurants in your customer mix?
Not too many. Most of them, there's a couple of them, but most of them are kind of just trying to get labor back. That they're still just treading water.
Yeah, I got a call from a friend who owns a major restaurant group in Seattle, of all places, and they've been hit by the quadruple or whatever big number whammy. I mean, they had all the unrest in Seattle. They've got a bridge that broke that the government won't repair because they don't believe in that sort of infrastructure spending. They've got food prices rising. They can't get anybody to come back to work. And she's part of the Independent Restaurant Association. And they think that 80% of restaurants are really running the risk of going belly up if they haven't already gone belly up. Are you guys hearing anything about that?
They're like this much. They're like each one that I've talked to, they're just barely, like if anything goes wrong in a month, it's kind of,
they operate on the razor thin margins.
Yeah.
So one thing that I took from what you said, Frank, and wanted to ask about is these people are acting as if the worst is yet to come. We're just getting into the bad part of this. Is that what you're hearing? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody that I know is it's just getting, going for a land grab as quickly as humanly possible, and not worried about anything else. Just saying, okay, well, stuff is going on in the world, but if we don't get ahead of it now, it's just going to be so much worse come a year from now, a year and a half from now, especially a lot of the people in real estate, like good times, 2021. And then the ones that are old enough are kind of getting nightmares from 2008, but they're starting to see those interest rates and loan interest rates go up.
Looking very
quite substantially.
Bill, I've got a question for you, Bill. When you pump the kind of money that we have over the past few years from COVID into the system, and now we're seeing inflation, I mean, that's never a good long-term thing. What are the effects of that kind of money that they've pumped into the system going to have on us over the next decade?
We got a couple hours.
Exactly.
Well, I think we're seeing with inflation, and we're seeing with Frank, you end up with a beggar thy neighbor economy where everybody's scrambling to get their price increases. And if you had somebody at the Fed or somebody in the Treasury or some grown-ups in the administration, I think they'd begin to start acting like Paul Volcker. But these guys, and including the Bush administration before, I mean, this goes all the way back to Bush and beyond. I mean, I don't know, maybe go back to Truman, I don't know. But the point is, they want to keep the plate spinning, and we've had a bull market. Remember, the stock market's been in a bull market for 40 years. And so you've seen bond prices go like this as interest rates fell. Equities went like this. I've been a very happy participant in the equity market. All those relationships are going to start to change. I was going to show you a chart here. This you can't really see it in this camera. Maybe
I see that it goes up on the right-hand side.
Anyway, what's happening is this is the share of corporate profits as a percentage of GDP. It's at a record level. It hadn't been this high. this is it. We're at a record level. It's something like 11% of gross domestic product from corporate profits. So what's happened is we've got the big companies, the Microsofts, the IBMs, the Amazon, the Facebook, the big tech. They're tonning it. Their profit margins are great, while the economy Frank's talking about is getting clobbered. So we've got this divergence here. And so the elite situation is not just political, but it's economic. And we got economic winners. And also the people like me who have been investors in the stock market. We're not, we're happy at the moment. But at some point, if interest rates keep rising, inflation, those interest rates are going to affect housing affordability. And this housing boom we've had is going to get choked. It's going to start, rising interest rates are going to choke the private equity industry because they're buying all these companies with a lot of leverage. A bad bond market will kill any economy. And so put on your seatbelts.
Yeah, it looks awful lot like 2008 right now.
I don't know what. I don't think it's 2008. I don't know what. I don't believe in history as being. I think time's a river that you step into it. It changes, but we got a lot of vulnerabilities now, and the biggest vulnerability is, I think, just the world orders. The post World War II U.S. hegemon world order is over. And it's becoming more fragmented. We're not getting globalization, but we're getting all these regional power blocks. It's a very, very tricky thing to navigate. And I wish we had some smart people in administration to help guide us.
I vote for you.
Well, I've got a lot of plans. Let's talk. Maybe that'll be our next story meeting.
Go tell them what they need to
hey,
do.
we gotta wrap up here. What else? Anything else we've missed that we ought to be thinking about for future program ideas?
The dollar and the value of the dollar. That's coming up next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whether it will be the world exchange currency anymore.
Right.
The world reserve currency.
Right.
It's under threat.
It's the most serious threat that's ever known.
Well, Russia's demanding payment for its gas in rubles. India is looking for rupees. Their currency blocks forming. China wants to launch a digital currency. I mean, the dollar. That's the thing. Rich, you put your finger on it. The thing that's really could kill us is if the dollar loses its status it has. Right. Then we can't finance it $30 trillion in debt or more and rising.
But it's all cyclical. I mean, because then we can't pay China the debt that we owe them, and then they go broke. So I think it's a mess for everybody.
The financial economy is a wreck, but I think the real economy, if you look at those profits, there are a lot of companies that are still doing pretty well. So I don't think I don't see a depression of that sort, but you're going to have to be nimble.
It's going to slow down.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Greg, any?
Yeah, I'd say watch the China-Russia friendship. I think they both see short-term benefits from it, and they both think that they're going to be the big brother in the end because Russia's got the energy, but China thinks it's growing in so many other ways. And so it's not going to end well, whenever that is. Could be a long time from now, but it's not going to end well.
Okay, well, this has been the Bill Walton Show. I'm with the team that helps put all this together, the Brain Trust. And if you want to come back for some happy news, maybe we'll gin up some for next time. Right now, though, I hope we're being helpful to sort of explain some of these dynamics and help you understand what's going on as we try to understand it with you. So anyway, thanks for joining, and we'll see you again soon. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Want more? Click the subscribe button or head over to thebillwaltonshow.com to choose from over 100 episodes. You can also learn more about our guest on our Interesting People page. And send us your comments. We read every one, and your thoughts help us guide the show. If it's easier for you to listen, check out our podcast page and subscribe there. In return, we'll keep you informed about what's true, what's right, and what's next. Thanks for joining.